up guys, and welcome back. This is going to be the second video or the second installment of Trent's Garage building a monster truck. And I know there's probably a lot of people commenting, that's not a monster truck, that's a rock crawler, or that's a truggy. And for you people, you are exactly right. But for people that have never seen something like this, it's going to look like a monster truck. These tires over here are the 42-inch trepidors that I'm going to be putting onto this truck. So you can see they're above my waist. These are going to be absolutely massive on this truck. In fact, if you have seen a Toyota Tacoma with 42-inch tires, you probably thought that looks absolutely ridiculous, and you are exactly right. So in the last video, I got the rack and pinion cut off of the front end here. I got our front differential completely disassembled, all the A-arms and shocks and everything off of the driver's side. So now all that's left underneath here is basically a cross member that ties the frame together, some shock hoops, and all of that stuff's getting cut off and replaced with tube in the future anyways. But what I have in this box right here is from Advanced Adapters. It is a 4-speed Atlas, and this is going to be replacing the factory transfer case. So today, I'm gonna start by removing the rear driveline, the factory transfer case, and then maybe I'll start removing the rear axle. The thing I'm kind of concerned with is I don't want to take too much off of the front end of the vehicle without removing things off the back, because it could cause it to tip off of the lift. So I'm going to try and lift this thing up today, see if I can stand underneath it, if it feels secure, so I can get the transfer case and the rear driveline taken off without laying on my back. Since I've lifted the truck up here and there is a lot of stuff removed off of the front end of the truck, there's a lot of garbage parts in the bed, and all of the rear drive assembly is still on. I'm going to install this supplemental lift and kind of put it underneath the rear end of the frame, so if shaking around it doesn't end up tipping backwards off of the lift. We've got our little kickstand there so the truck doesn't fall off. I'm gonna head under here, start removing the driveline. I'm gonna remove the transfer case. Probably should have drained the transfer case while it was low to the ground. I thought about that earlier. I didn't do it. I should have done it. For those of you guys that are tuning in for the first time, my name is Trent. I'm gonna be building this 2005 Toyota Tacoma into a monster truck, into a truggy, a rock crawler with enormous tires. I'm putting Dana 60 axles under this thing. It's going to be quite a fun machine by the time I'm done. And to kind of start off, I am not a professional. I have a lot of experience with mechanic work and wrenching and a little bit of fabrication. I used to weld and build handrails and gates and fences about 15 years ago, so it's been quite a while. But I'm going to be building a tube frame. I'm going to be basically doing a front end, a rear end, and everything on here is going to be custom. 4-link front and rear, full hydro steering. So when I bought this truck, it had basically been totaled. It had been crashed. A tow truck company towed it to their lot, and the owner never came and picked it up. So after sitting there for a certain period of time, a tow truck company can actually take ownership of your vehicle if it's there long enough. They get a title from the state, and then they can sell it. So that's exactly what happened here. And basically, the front passenger side hit something very large and very stationary while the truck was going very fast. It forced the A-arm up into the wheel well. It completely destroyed everything. You can actually see right here, this low point in the frame. The frame is buckled inwards right here. So what I intended on doing was sectioning off the frame right behind that bend on both sides and then building a tube front end. But as I got in here and started looking a little bit deeper, as with most older Toyotas, this frame has got a considerable amount of rust. Now, I'm in Utah where they salt the roads, and Toyota is just notorious for having rusty frames anyways. Not to mention, the frame isn't fully boxed anywhere past right here. So there's only this section of frame that's boxed, and if I was gonna cut this off, I'd have to box the rear end in order to do a 4-link, and it's already rusty, so I'm basically just gonna build an entirely new frame. Something I've never done before, but I'm gonna give it a whirl. I'm gonna do a tube front end up here. I'm gonna do rectangular tubing from basically here to the back of the cab, and then I'm gonna do a tube rear end. I'm gonna build all of the links. I'm gonna do a 4-link front and rear with the Dana 60s, and I've never done really any of that before. So it's gonna be an exciting learning process, and I'm really stoked to get it done. And actually, yesterday I had a really, really exciting delivery, and I'm gonna show you guys that later in the video. So I actually started out doing mechanic work when I was a teenager, kind of like in high school. I was on our auto tech team in high school, So I did a lot of like diagnostics and wrenching, and then I started working in tire shops and worked as a mechanic for a few years. And then I started to realize that if I worked on cars for a job, I was gonna start hating it. And so I really wanted to like keep it as a hobby and a passion. So I've always liked working on my own cars and fixing things and helping a friend here and there, but it's just not something I wanted to pursue as a job. From the transfer case to the rear axle is so long, and these trucks are normally so low to the ground that they have a carrier bearing right here in the middle, and it's a 2-piece drive shaft. And I don't know if I'm gonna need to do that when I like rebuild this and put the new transfer case and the new axle in here. Even though I'm gonna be putting massive tires, I want the 42-inch tires to basically come up to like the back of the cab. So the axle might come forward a touch, and the transfer case is a 4-speed, so it's probably gonna be back a little bit further. And it's a high pinion rear axle, so hoping I can get a shorter drive shaft in there and I can just do 1 piece, but won't know until I tear it apart and start fabbing things up. At least I can actually get to these bolts now that it's in the air. In our last episode, I was actually trying to take off the front diff, and I could not get to the bolts that were holding the driveline on because of like the angle. But a lift just makes everything so much easier because you can like stand and like get underneath it and you're not laying on your back going, yeah. When I started removing the battery and all the things that would prevent me from being able to shift the transfer case into neutral because it shifts electronically, I just didn't think ahead, and I didn't think to put it in neutral or do anything. So, yep, it's in gear, and I can't rotate the drive shaft to get to some of these bolts, so I'm just gonna have to wrestle with it the old-fashioned way. Mechanic work as an adult, it's entirely different than when I was a teenager. I don't know if that's just life experience and the way that I look at things, or that I have more confidence in things, but...
What would you have done as a teenager?
I don't know, curse at it and bust up my knuckles and try to use 12 different tools. I don't know, I was a young idiot. Now I'm a middle-aged idiot, but I've gained a little bit of experience, which has helped me in a lot of different ways. Well, that was shocking, a little bit of PV on those exhaust bolts and they came right off. I really thought that I was gonna have to fight those. All right, so the rest of the exhaust bolts came out, which I am absolutely shocked. This could basically be a PB Blaster commercial, but I do have to say that as a mechanic, probably the worst thing you can run into is like stripped bolts or things that are just overly rusty, because rusty bolts lead to stripped bolts, or they don't come out, or the threads get locked and you have to torch things off. So it's really, really nice when things just unbolt and come apart, and that's basically what's happening right now. So I'm basically tickled pink. Ow! Rusty junk. Alright, so now we've got a couple problems. One, getting to all the bolts around the transfer case is going to be a little bit difficult. There's a possibility that I can get to them all. Might have to unbolt the transmission mount so I can slide the transfer case back and forth. But if I can get to all the bolts and separate the case, disconnect all the electrical, I could effectively pull it out. However, it is going to be rather heavy and it's like overhead. Cool if every bolt that they put on the car just had like the socket size number on it. Like it said 12, 12, 12.
Yeah.
That'd be really helpful. I grabbed the wrong size.
Oh my God.
There's one bolt that's like basically hidden behind the transmission mount, and in order to take that bolt out to separate the case, you've got to like lift the transmission up and basically take off the transmission mount. So I'm going to use my kickstand that's holding up the back of the vehicle to lift that up to undo the transmission mount so I can get some separation and get that one bolt out. And then I think the transfer case is going to come out. Before I do that, I feel like maybe I should take the rear axle off just to help with weight.
Maybe empty the bed of the truck?
I don't have nowhere to put the stuff. built a 1991 Toyota pickup before it was called the Tacoma. And it was 2-wheel drive, and I did a solid axle swap on it, and I put 37s on it, and I built Toyota axles and did a full exo cage. And I remember back then, like the old trucks, the old Toyota pickups were all rusty. And it was like, oh, if only we could get like a new Tacoma, you know, like 2005, wouldn't be rusty. And here we are, you know, 15 years later, and 2005 is a rusty Toyota too, so. It's just the destiny of Toyotas, they're just gonna be rust buckets. So when I assembled this lift and I filled up this hydraulic fluid reservoir, I used like AW32, which I thought was a good weight of hydraulic fluid. It turns out that I guess I'm not supposed to use hydraulic fluid in this lift, or something is wrong, because this is how long it takes for the lift to go down. It is like, it takes so long that my arms are exhausted from holding the safety switch while it goes down. Somebody said I'm supposed to put ATF in here, but I really have no idea, so if you know, give me a holler. Let me know in the comments what I'm supposed to put in here. Because with how long this takes, I could probably drain this and fill it up with the correct fluid by the time the truck gets to the ground. It's annoying. So my wife and I, Allie, we traveled around in a van. We like built out a camper van and did some traveling in it. And basically, in order to fit our propane tank, I had to deflate the spare, and it was a setup exactly like this. So I deflated it so the front could be collapsed, and I sucked it back up with the cable and like locked it in place. And then one day we were just driving through the middle of Canada on the freeway at like 70 miles an hour, and people are pointing at us like, hey, pull over, pull over, pull over. I pull over, and our spare tire, the cable had just unwound itself somehow, and the spare tire was flat on the ground about 3 feet behind the van, just being drugged flat on the freeway at like 80 miles an hour. It was absolutely insane. I don't know how it stayed on there and didn't like bounce around and pop off, but ever since then, I don't really trust these little mechanisms that hold the cable with the spare tire.
All right. There's all the weight that was in the rear.
Yeah, a little bit of it. All right, guys. Unfortunately, I did not get the transfer case out today, but I did get the rear axle. I got basically all the drive lines. Everything is out that's coming out except for the frame, the front clip, transfer case. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that still has to come out, but in the next episode, I'll definitely get the transfer case out, and I might start cutting the front clip off. We'll see. I'm really glad that I got all this stuff removed. It wasn't that big of a pain in the butt. So now I just got to take off the bed. I have a lot of stuff to take off. I'm not going to list the things that I have to take off, but if you guys enjoyed watching this video, make sure you guys show me by giving a big thumbs up on today's video. Consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, I have been very excited about this delivery. If you guys don't know what's inside these boxes, they are 4 Fox factory race coilovers that are tuned by AccuTune suspension. I'm really excited. I'm gonna pop one of these boxes open and show you guys what's inside. That is a beautiful sight. I got 16-inch coilovers front and rear. I'm very excited to get these things installed, but there's gonna have to be a lot of fabrication that takes place first, but I wanted you guys to get a peek at these, and also I wanted to open it up and get a peek at these. Whew. This is gonna be awesome.